Well, we, a couple years ago, put an ad in the paper saying if you want sod and you have access to a sod cutter, come and take our front yard. And we got so many phone calls and got rid of it, pretty much immediately. Because we were watering, the only way to keep this cute little front yard, that used to be cute, looking good was to water it. And I just thought, this is ridiculous. It's doing nothing but requiring mowing. So I started thinking about doing xeriscape out here, but then Antonio started interning as a biodynamic farmer intern down in Longmont, and we decided let's just turn every spot that we possibly can on this little plot here into an edible landscape and see what we can do, with a 59-day growing season. So the first year we had, we pretty much covered this entire space with just everything, and it did really well, and we were eating all kinds of things that tasted so good. And then last year Antonio went down to Costa Rica to intern again on a farm down there called Finca Luna Nueva, which is owned by New Chapter, if you've heard of that supplement company. They grow the majority of their turmeric and ginger for their supplements. Anyway, he went down there. They required 3 months, which was a real bummer because the first day he showed up, he had to take everybody, the group tour that they had zip lining. And they made 3 meals a day for him, folded his laundry, washed it for him. Anyhow, he went down there. I didn't do anything with the front yard. It just sort of lay fallow. Most of these peas that have come back have planted themselves. And because the reason I wasn't doing anything with it is because I was learning about raw milk dairy, and I managed that for the past year. So anyway, he came back and we thought about the long-term goal of this front yard. So we put in wood chips that we got from local arborists who have to pay to drop their chips off at landfill, and they were psyched to just be able to just dump them here. Our neighbor over here and over here was psyched to come over with wheelbarrows full of their leaves in the fall and just dump them in our front yard. So we've got all kinds of tree mulch and stuff in the front yard. And then the berm right along the road, we wanted anything that was going to run down the road with snow melt and rain to have a barrier before it reached what we were growing for food. And we've inoculated this all with mycelium, so it's got fungus in here, which is going to kill anything. I don't know if you know much about, if you've ever heard of Paul Stamets and listened to his TED Talk on what mushrooms will do, and how they'll basically eat all kinds of stuff that you really don't want. That was kind of the goal. This is Antonio right here. Anyhow, so this got put down last fall, and we went ahead and planted a lot of things. Each row, as you see, there's little paper seeds along there. Nothing's come up. So apparently it's not quite ready to grow anything except for the beans. We've got beans that have come up. And then we decided to work on perennials. So our neighbor next door has got all kinds of little raspberry shoots that have been coming up in his yard, and we've been going over there and digging those up and planting them. And then we also did a little bit of strawberries over there. So this is, eventually one day we're going to have primo soil out here and lots of things to eat again.
When you got all the leaves and stuff, did you work it into the soil at all, or just...
It's all basically, if anything, we've got too much out here, and I think this fall, once the, what does the mycelium do? It kind of gets ready for winter and dies back, and then it'll be a better time to actually dig out what we have and move it. But no, this is pretty much just sitting on top. And the nice thing, too, about it is, like this dandelion, if we didn't want that here, that's it. So weeding is, a breeze. But why don't I let Antonio go ahead. They're going to do a talk about water conservation before. I think you just want to know. I just told him the history of the front yard, and
Sure.
then we did drip line.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
How many years do you think it's going to take for this to mature and be valuable
You
soil
know,
for growing?
already, when you just go down a little bit, there's all kinds of worms, and you're not even at the soil level yet. And you can even see the mycelial hair fibers. Yeah, you can see that in there. So it's already happening.
Definitely a great way to hold your soil moisture.
Oh yeah. But as far as how long until we actually have amazing soil, I think we're probably going to keep some sort of mulch up here and just, you know, decide which areas are going to actually be growing something, and that way when we do have things we don't want, they'll just pull out easy. And
Mycelium.
yeah.
Pass it around. Okay. That's the mycelium. Oh. So we inoculate it with mycelial spores so that we could kind of create our network of subsoil fungi. And you know, it does take a little bit of time for it to break down. We probably went a little heavy because our free chips came from you know, were basically being dumped as a favor. So most of them ended up in the front yard. We had to try to cart as much in the back as we could. So that's a good lesson too. If you get a source of chips, make sure that they can dump them in a place that's convenient. But yeah, then the other thing that chips can do is kind of tie up nitrogen. So we kind of just let the legumes go nuts, and hope that maybe we can fix some nitrogen in the soil as well. And oh yeah, and then of course we've got some beans which are doing modestly okay. The perennials seem to like it, so I'm sort of impressed. We had to dig back and get a little bit closer contact with the soil on this end. Thank you. Pretty much the same strategy in back is that we take advantage of the free nitrogen that we get from the clovers are given free land.
Chlorine and fluoride with our main focus.
The BD preps don't work in chlorinated waters.
So that's going over the top. That's committing. That's awesome. It's great. Most homeowners, you know, you're not going to do that. So when you do run a drip system to your garden bed, or I do a lot of systems for people, and I'll put, you know, like we need a garden. I'm like, well, let's go ahead and run a designated valve on the irrigation system and have that be designated towards the garden. And it's also put out there at the end of the main line by your garden, let's put a quick coupler. Quick coupler is what you see at the golf courses. You take a hose connection and you put it in the ground, you turn it, you got water right away. Put a hose so you can put that anywhere in the yard. So a lot of times if the garden was back in that corner, we'd run the main line through here and we put a valve back there that would have a specific time set for that garden. But you've also got the additional ability to water by hand if you need to. Because that's a tricky thing with gardens, is you've got such a different variety of water requirements in there. And we found that at the nursery. I can't just turn my system on overhead and say, all right, cool, I got water. Now I got stuff drowning over here, I got stuff drying up over here, and I'll water at the exact same time. So the biggest point is know your water requirements of your plants and plant them accordingly. Whenever I do a drip system or an irrigation system for someone, know that your tomatoes need more than your herbs. Know that. Split them up that way. That way when I do an irrigation system, and it probably the easiest one to do at your house is you can go get a hose bib timer, and after this we're going to meet back down at the community garden. And I brought a lot of little gizmos. I can show you kind of what I brought. The minimum you can do, which I highly recommend, is getting a hose bib timer from Walmart, from me, from someone, I'd recommend one that has time on it instead of flow. You can put them so you can say, I want to move 500 gallons through here, and it'll turn off after that amount of time. I'd rather see one that says time on there. It's going to turn on at 8, it's going to turn off at 8:15. Okay. That way you can really play around with it and get it dialed in. Put that on your spigot outside. The ones we sell have 2 ports on it. One that you can hook up and water anything else you want to, and one's a timed port. So it'll be automatically controlled by a timer. Because probably the biggest thing I see is people that turn their water on, and they have great intentions. Turn your water on, you go inside, you come back 2 hours later, your garden's floating down the street. Or, cool, I'm going to go on vacation, can you watch my garden for me? I'm only going to be gone for a week. Water for me, okay, cool. I leave. You have great intentions, but the day before I get back, you soak it. Because you forgot all week to do it. And now you got to water it. And all my stuff looks dead, but it's wet. Okay. Putting a system in with a hose bib timer is definitely the cheapest way to do it. And when you do it, it can, if down the road you want to put a system in, a truly automated system, we can tie into what's already going on there. Like with your system in front there, just to use it as an example. If you wanted an automated irrigation system, it'd be easy to go ahead and use what they've already got in there. Okay, the flows are there. I know my flow rates. I saw those brown emitters, 5-gallon emitters. I mean, you just know how to flow things. Which brings me back to my other point I said too on the way here is spend a little bit of time and effort and get your system designed properly. Because I know a lot of people that just go out there and they buy pipe and they go, all right, flow, I don't need flow and pressure, I'll put a couple heads on here and it'll work. It doesn't. And it wastes water. Another thing I tell people too is an irrigation system does save you water because it's automated. It waters properly. But I put a system in for someone, I put a big system in. And they called me and said, Zeus, I'm not saving any water here. Why not? I'm like, okay, I'm irrigating that. Okay. In comparison, I'm saving you water, but not compared to what you did water before. So have realistic goals in mind. I'm working with a lot of people right now that are really concerned about the fire issues. Good point. We do a lot of reclamation, a lot of reseeding areas. Everything takes, okay, this is key. Everything takes water to establish. I don't care if it's xeric, I don't care what it is. If you plant it and you don't water it, it's going to die. So everything's going to take water to get established. But the xeric plants, the native grasses, once they're established and they start rooting, you can significantly reduce your water. I think, Lisa, you were saying some of these xeric plants over here have kind of been doing their own thing.
Yeah, they've been great.
Yeah. Once they're established, they're great. It goes back to that no maintenance thing. It's not a pluck it in the ground and walk away. You're going to water it to get it established. When it's established, it'll be happy and good to go. Where was I going with that? I was messing over that. Excuse me? Oh, 5. You're good. Thank you. We're doing some bigger homes that, you know, when you do a new home, which there aren't many of right now, but when you do them and you scrape all the soil left and you're back establishing stuff, and okay, I don't really want to water that over there, but I want that to be back to grass. I'm recommending to all my clients let's put a temporary system on top of the soil and we'll go ahead and pull it down. I'm like, no, you're not that much more expensive to go ahead and trench it in and have it in there. We'll put it on its own separate valve. It'll turn on water, get the grasses established. If you ever need that to reestablish it, you can. But more than that, if you get a fire, you've got perimeter protection already in the ground. So we're doing a lot of stuff like that. Granted, you want to water it before the fire comes to your front door because your power turns off, your controller's off, and then you're not watering. So to hit the button and run probably isn't going to do much when the fire is a block away. But when it's coming, you can start wetting down some of your material. You mentioned something up front that was absolutely key. I don't care what we do. If your soil is bad, I'm not going to grow anything in road base. I don't care how much I water it. I'm going to let it run off, and it's not going to perk in, and nothing's going to grow. Amend your soil. People always call me at the nursery and go, how much prep should I do? How much money do you have? The more money you can put into your soil, to a point, is going to be very beneficial. Okay, and doing it proper. Knowing that, wood chips, as they break down, take nitrogen away from the soil. So I want to go ahead and be able to supplement my nitrogen if I'm going to put sawdust in my soil, if I'm going to go put a lot of chips. Be ready to supplement with nitrogen if you're going to need to. But the more prep you can do. People always go, I want to go ahead and I'm going to plant a tree. Well, that's great. Dig your hole only as deep as your root ball. Okay? Trees do not root down. plants root out. If you look at a tree, what you see above ground, you have 2 to 3 times below ground in the sprawl, in the top 12 to 24 inches. They don't root down. For me to go ahead and put if you guys call up and say, oh, I want a drip system on my whole yard, then please drip this tree. Waste. Because these feeder roots are out here. They're at the drip line of the tree. The most outer branches, be it deciduous or evergreen, are where your feeder roots are. Because all the water drips off there, drips down here, and this is what's picking up your moisture. So to put a drip emitter back there by the base of that plant, put there, it's not going to help out. Some trees do root down. Willows are very aggressive. Do not plant willows over a water main. You'll be bumming. Lodgepoles, and you'll see this is evident when you're up on the mountain, you see the blowdown. They have a taproot that goes down. It does not get nutrients. That's only wind sail. It just hopefully anchors the tree in, unless it's on a rock, and that's why you see a lot of the lodgepoles laying over. But most trees are in the top 12 and 24 inches. Watch how deep you plant your material. You'll go, oh, it's a dry year, I'm going to plant my plant a little deeper so it'll absorb the water. It'll just trickle in there. Don't do that. Put a little catch basin. Plant your tree or your plant so that here's your existing soil. Here's the pot, the soil in the pot. Make sure it's level, meets there, but maybe build a little earthen dam around your plant. And that's your catch basin. That's what you water. Goes back to earlier when I said, when you water plant, soak a plant, move over here, and go back and water that plant in again. Because as that water perks through the soil, it's going to bring more water with it. As it moves through the soil profile, it's going to pull more water with it. But once you've filled it up, it's saturated. It can't do anything yet. It's like taking your house plant, putting your kitchen sink, turning the sink on, or it's faucet on, it fills up. But if you keep going, it just keeps spewing down the sink. If you stop and let that settle and then hit it again, it'll draw more in. And my time's up. Excellent. All right.
This is mostly flowers and pretty stuff, but I do have some fruit trees. These little guys are little kind of sweet cherry bushes, and I have them planted close to the apple tree. That's an apple tree right there. Okay, and Mary's going to tell you some more about how this
So I'm going to talk about what is permaculture. So permaculture, the name comes from permanent agriculture and permanent culture. So it's building permanent culture through building permanent agriculture. And we have it's a design system basically, and it incorporates many different techniques, whatever is suitable for your place. So no one technique is preferred over another, although we do have sort of some guidelines. We have principles that guide us. There are ethics that are kind of not ruling, but over-guiding, overreaching. So that's care of the earth, care of people, and fair share. So that, we don't have a lot of surplus, and what we have, we do share. Nobody takes too much of anything. And then a lot of the principles are things like slow, simple solutions, really watching and observing and getting to know your environment, your landscape, your home, and watching and figuring out where your hot spots are, where your cold spots are, your sunny spots, your wet spots, your dry spots, and enhancing those, or trying to maybe change those a little bit based on what your needs are. And doing a lot of really kind of interesting techniques like Linda has right here started. We copy nature. And nature, one of the things she does is she always plants a bunch of different plants together, but often when you go in the wild, they're the same plants. You talk about the Douglas fir forest, and you'll always have a ground cover, and then you'll always have a shrub, so there's layers, and one is doing one thing. So we have multi-uses. We plant plants that have multi-function. So this little tree here is actually being fed by this lovely lupin, because this is a nitrogen fixer. So we always plant nitrogen fixers with heavy feeders. And so this is just a really nice, simple example.
What is this again?
This is a lupin.
A lupin.
Yeah, so they're pretty, and it's basically aesthetic, but this is a really good nitrogen fixer, so it's feeding the soil.
Isn't that cool?
All of the bean family, or the Fabiaceae family, are nitrogen fixers. So she's mixed in the same thing here. She's got some fruit. A lot of this is just our perennial flowers. This has all been sheet mulch, which we'll talk about a little bit back there. And the big thing is she's used stone everywhere. So she's creating microclimate through the use of stone. The stone holds heat, and in Colorado, in a steamboat anyway, it is really important to get as much heat as you can so that you can extend the season. And also the light color of the stone is reflecting back light and heat. So it's another good way of just enhancing this little space or this space, like creating a lot more heat and sun reflection, so a little more light. Mixing things up, she's got the sunflower thing, so you're attracting different pollinators. So that's another thing is in permaculture we mix plants up a lot, not a lot of no monocultures, so that you're attracting pollinators, you're confusing the pests, mixing it up a little bit so you don't, the caterpillars, may only find one little corner of your garden. This will go, keep moving back.
There's a couple of blue.
You've got your fruit tree, you've got ground covers, some really beautiful wildflower plants that she's brought in. This is feverfew, which is another medicine, but it's also another really important pollinator, bee attractant, insect plant. So again, all these multi-uses, as well as being really pretty. And the stone. And then she's taken advantage, this is the her primary growing side of the house, clearly, but the reflection off the house, that light color, and this being facing the west and the south is all going to increase again the heat. So you're creating along this whole side a microclimate that is going to be warmer and brighter, and so she'll get a longer season rather than if we planted on the north.
Hey, what was this again?
Feverfew.
Collards and lettuce. This is dill, and dill keeps the bugs off the broccoli. The broccoli here. The strawberries live in here over the winter. This is kale that came back. This is a Swiss chard that came back, and bok choy, and then a lot of potatoes. And this monster potato right here came back itself. That's why it's so big. Yeah. And more calendula. And this works out really well to plant in these openings because it's warm enough that the strawberries can live through the winter there.
They look real happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is a great, again, example of one of the permaculture techniques is in terms of creating a microclimate again. These stones, because of our winters here, you want to try and extend your season as much as possible. So these stones are going to collect heat, and they've got dirt in them, so they're even more so. She's raised it up. So this is going to release and collect heat during the day. She's going to be able to plant in here much sooner because the snow is going to melt in here much quicker than it is if this is flat ground. And in the fall, she's going to have an extension of the season once again because these again are going to hold the heat. The great thing too is that she has got old campaign signs in here, framed. But this kind of narrow bed like this, and it's a raised bed, lends itself very well to row covers. So using some kind of polyethylene pipe or whatever you can recycle, or even laying row cover directly on the ground, you can just extend the season on both ends. You can plant much sooner, it's going to keep it warmer, or you can continue to keep it warm later into the fall. Again, dill, she's letting it just kind of replant itself because it's such a good insectary plant.
Well, tell me about the sheet mulch too.
Oh, and this is an example of sheet mulching, and sheet mulching is one of the main techniques that we really encourage because we don't till the soil. Permaculture is based on looking at what nature does and trying to figure out why she does what she does and emulate that. And she does not till the soil. About the only time she tills the soil is when a tree falls over. And if you look at, if you think and you look about a mature forest, you don't have a lot of weeds in the forest because it's mature. She's got mulch on the ground every year. All that stuff is falling down on the ground. It's fertilizing. It's creating mulch. It's covering the ground. It's smothering out the weeds. So this is kind of what we do in permaculture. Is we build the soil from the top up. And then we leave all that stuff that's going on in the ground because there's a whole world of action going on under the soil, what's called the soil web life. And it's microbes and bacteria and mycorrhizal, and they're all doing all kinds of things in terms of moving the minerals around. They're communicating. They're like moving the hormones around. One plant talks to another plant. I need this. I need that. That's all happening underneath the soil. You till the soil, you break that up, and it has to start all over again. The plants that can live in a freshly tilled soil, which is basically just bacteria, the soil web life has been broken, are your annuals, are your weeds. That's why you get weeds after you till the soil, because that's the only thing that can live in that tilled soil, and they're earth healers. Weeds, Mother Nature doesn't make mistakes. Weeds are here for a reason. You know, they grow fast, they give us lots of material, most of them dig way down into the ground so that they're aerating, they're bringing up nutrients, so they're basically trying to build soil, and then we're spending all this time trying to stop them from doing that. And if you want to control your weeds, it's like looking at your weeds and trying to understand how they grow, how they reproduce. Most of them are annuals. So if you have a weed problem and you see, you know, like right now, a lot of them are going to seed. You want to stop them from going to seed. So, you know, cutting them off. If you can't, you know, pulling them lots of times doesn't help, because if the roots are still in the ground, they're just going to come back. So lots of times it's just a matter of preventing them from next season's generation. So I spent all day this morning whacking off the tops of thistles because they're all getting flowered and going to go to seed. Next year we'll have less thistles, and maybe in a couple of years they'll just run out of energy and they'll be done, and we'll have so many thistles. You want to?
These are black-eyed peas that I'm trying this year. And those potatoes came back, both of those. Let me see. And I already harvested the garlic in here, and so I put a cover crop in. And you can see all these babies coming up, that's cover crop. So anywhere things didn't germinate, because it was a tough year to get things to start, that's what I did. I have some perennial sorrel, and that's a curry plant over there that I'm trying this year, that kind of blue green one. And you rub it, and it smells like curry. Wow. And sage comes back. And then back here I've got sunflowers, and I've got climbing beans that are going to climb up those. And then that'll also shade my lettuce and spinach back there, so it'll keep going through the heat of the summer. And that's asparagus back there. I think she does that. Oh, tell me about the company.
Yeah. So again, an example of she's mixing some perennials in with the vegetables. Also, this is sage, so it's a medicine plant. It's also a pollinator plant. In permaculture, you usually intermix a lot so that you're getting various, you know, crops at different times of the year, but they're all working together. You don't have one like monocrop, and then if you get an insect, it's going to wipe them all out. You've got everything mixed up, so you're confusing where the insects want to go, and sometimes you sacrifice a little bit, but they're not going to get your whole garden.
What do you do about chipmunks, gophers, other animals that love to eat this stuff?
Well, that can be a problem. I know you've got, yeah, for you it's a huge problem. He's got a, yeah, in town it's not such a big issue. Paul has a really amazing garden though. What he's done is he's got a raised bed that's, what, 3 feet off the ground? With a fence around it for the deer, because he's out in the middle of the country. And then you put screening underneath.
Put screen underneath,
right?
So the gophers couldn't get.
But I actually have found there is actually some really good organic liquid things that are really good. We're using plant skid out at Mary Lester's.
We'll talk.
And it's
I have some granules too that I use, because I'll have dogs come in and poop in the garden.
yeah. So you know there are organic things. A lot of it's putting things around the edges that smell really yucky, or you can make sprays out of cayenne and soap and garlic and make things really stinky, and spray them around gardens. This is comfrey, and comfrey is a really, really important plant in permaculture. It's a medicinal. It's an insectiary plant. Most of your blue flower plants attract pollinators, and this is a nice purpley blue plant. It's also what's called a bioaccumulator. So it draws up nutrients and minerals from the soil and puts them in the leaves. And the leaves are soft, they break down really quickly, they have a lot of what's called mucilage in them, so if you pick the leaves, they're kind of juicy. So they break down really quickly. So this actually will speed up compost, so it's really good because it heats up quickly, so it'll speed up your compost. But it's like a living compost too. When we use a plant like this, we call what the technique we're using is chop and drop. So basically we chop it off and move it and throw it on the ground. It becomes a mulch. It adds to your mulch, but it's also a composting right in place. It's adding all those nutrients right there into the soil. And it's so rich, and it'll help with the breakdown. So this is a really, really important plant. It's often planted in when we were talking about the guilds with the fruit trees. We would often have a comfrey plant, and it would be chopped right there and laid down with the fruit tree. So it's feeding and mulching at the same time as adding lots of nutrients. And there's a lot of your bigger soft-leaf plants like this that we use. Fennel is another one. Lovage gives you lots of leaves, gets big, lots of chop and drop, and it keeps coming back, so you don't need to, you have to plant the plant.
Does that come back when you chop it?
Oh,
It
this is,
usually comes back 3 times every summer.
once you have comfrey, you'll never get rid of it.